listening to Dirty Feet, and this is Alison Burns recording from Odd Studios in Ottawa, Ontario. We're continuing our coverage of the Dark Horse Dance projects. And this is the second episode where we are going to talk to a new slew of artists who are presenting work as part of the showcase. The episode will be bilingual, with the majority of the conversation taking place in English and some French as well. Enjoy. We're going to be speaking next with a group of 4 artists, the choreographer Charles Cardin-Bourbeau, as well as his 3 dancers during this performance, Jessie Lotte, Aaliyah Graham, and Annabelle Boissonneau. We're going to be talking about this work, which I haven't seen, but we'll hear all about it and get it painted with your words. Charles, what is the proposition of the work that you're presenting?
It's a mishmash of 2 ideas. At first, it was how to create a new human being that is not really human, more animalistic, but not... I didn't know where I wanted to go with that. I had that image in my head. And then I discovered the Les Expositions Coloniales, or the Colonial Exposition in 1931 in Paris that happened not so long ago. And they had these human zoos, or like these humans in prisons, or what do you call them? I wouldn't know how to say it. Just cages, and they would be exposed, and noble people could go see them and see these humans in those cages, and that just inspired me to go forward with that humanoid idea in cages. Yeah. Oh,
that's very interesting, as this is, you're already exhibiting these 3 women,
exactly,
performers on stage, and doing it in a way that is more socially acceptable, I suppose, than putting them in a cage. I'm wondering how your interprets feel about this subject matter and interpreting that.
It's a world, like, we all talked about it for a little while, and we've been thinking about it a lot, like, since like a couple months ago, and and then we started to create like just some movement with some restrictions, with bandages that like restricted like some of the movements of our wrist and ankles and stuff. So we've been like working with that for the whole process of the creation. So I guess it was a cool way to explore different, like a bunch of different things, and with the colonial exhibit as well, it was a good like outside thing to explore in our heads and in our minds, to like an interesting place to go and try to feel something different with that.
We had to like explore our character, and when we began, it was more physical stuff that we were working on, but after we discovered that we had to work on our character, our interpretation, so it was nice, and then we mixed the physical thing and the interpretation, and it was a nice build-up.
Thank you, Annabelle and Jessie. All right, so the 4 of you are all graduates from the Ottawa School of Dance, and I'm understanding that the majority of you actually currently live in Montreal, except for Alia, who is still a resident of Ottawa. I'm wondering what it means to come back and present this work at the Dark Horse Dance Projects and here at Odd in Ottawa.
Well, for my part, it's the second time I am participating in this project. Well, actually, everyone participated, but not in the same project together. So for me, it's important to come back to Ottawa, mostly because this is where I grew up artistically, and I just feel that it's someone's responsibility to make the artistic world in Ottawa grow, and I'm just really happy to see that some people as like Marie-Pierre and Jocelyn are making it happen. So I really want to participate, and I really want to endorse them in that initiative.
And Annabelle?
Yeah, I find it's always good to come back in Ottawa. It feels like home, and I'm always like, every time I have a project in here, I'm really proud of the small dance community that is going on, but still growing and growing, like every year after year. So yeah, it's just a good feeling to come back here and present stuff that comes from our hearts, that is of course influenced by what we've learned here, but also influenced by all of the other things around from Montreal, but from everywhere else as well. So yeah, for me it's important to move around and find different cities and go to some different places and stuff. So to travel also.
Charles, you have a background as being an interprète for a couple important Montreal companies. I'm wondering if you can speak about how that has affected your work, or whether it hasn't affected your work as a choreographer. And talk about some of the companies you've worked with.
That's a good question, because that was actually one of my struggles with this piece. For sure, I've been very inspired by the works of everyone I've worked with, actually, and recently I've been working with Marie Chouinard and Vertigo. So it's two distinct choreographers that have been in the world for a very long time. So it has been, for me, a struggle not to inspire myself too much. And at the same time, I'm really grateful to have seen these worlds. So they have molded some of my artistic views and artistic way of shaping things around me now. I couldn't say really how much they influenced me, but they are very present in my new way of creating now, for sure.
And for the dancers who work both in Ottawa and in Montreal, I'm wondering if you could speak at all about the link between the two cities. They're only 2.5 hours away by car, kind of thing, and what it is that keeps you in Montreal versus Ottawa.
I have been working with Ottawa dance directives as soon as I graduated, and I also worked, as I said before, with Vertigo and Marie Chouinard in Montreal. And I have to say, it's mostly the contract that will be, if I can, I will come back to Ottawa. I've been staying in Montreal because the work has been really good, but then again, I've been coming over to Ottawa when I can, because I really love being back here in the community. So for me, it's really mostly contracts that are keeping me in any cities that I'm traveling to.
Yeah, like for now I live in Montreal more for like personal and like family and stuff, like personal reasons and families, and I like to have like a base somewhere, and I like Montreal, so it's pretty much like it's really central, and I find that it's easy for me to come back to Ottawa. It goes with the projects as well, and I guess it's just, for me it's just really nice to like go from a city to another and be always kind of moving, but still have a home base somewhere, because I know I need it. So, and it's a good way to like still be open-minded, and still, because even if it's like contemporary dance in every different cities, there's still like a touch of different things that you can associate, or without like being too general.
Yeah, it's two different dynamic, Ottawa and Montreal, but I don't stop to these two cities. Like, I want to expand my knowledges, and so yes, I'm living in Montreal and I have projects in Ottawa, and it's nice because we have collaboration and different backgrounds, people. So we have a nice projects that we put together. And I also want to go to Europe maybe one day, and be able like to have projects in both, or different cities. Yeah.
Okay, it's about time to wrap up. I'm wondering if anybody has any last words on this piece that you're presenting, on Dark Horse, on life.
Well, it would be amazing if a lot of people could come and see this amazing initiative in Ottawa for the second edition. I think this year it's very well wrapped up. It's a lot of choreographers compared to last year, and I think there's going to be a lot of good projects going on, and I can't wait to see it. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been speaking with a crew behind one of the works that's being presented as part of Dark Horse Dance Projects here in Ottawa. The choreographer who you've been listening to is Charles Cardin-Bourbeau, and his three performers, Jessie, Alia, and Annabelle. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Next up, I'm going to be speaking with Keir Knight, who is the choreographer of yet another work that's going to be presented as part of the Dark Horse Dance Projects. And Keir has a whole team working on the project as well who are not present. So I would love it if you could just introduce us to your team, Keir.
Yeah, so it's myself and a girl named Alison Blakely. And her and I have known each other throughout the years. She was a dancer in Montreal. We never really danced together, but an ex-boyfriend of hers did music for Edward Locke back in the day, and we met up here in Ottawa and had talked about doing work together, and never really. I think we both did something for Nuit Blanche, but we never really choreographed a piece together. And so I asked her to participate. So Alison Blakely. So I'm collaborating musically with a guy named Ahmad Hashem, who makes really beautiful music, and we were making music without any real goal in mind. We were just jamming on Tuesdays, and when I found out about this Dark Horse Dance project, I approached him and asked him if he would make music for a dance piece, and it turns out that that's something that he'd always been really interested in doing, was creating sort of ambiance for performance art or film or dance pieces. So we sat down and just sort of hashed out the rough ideas of the what the piece would look like with mood and coloring, and he made beautiful music. So that was my music collaborator, Ahmed Hashem.
Brilliant. And you mentioned it quickly there about Locke, but you actually used to dance for La 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 Human Steps when the company was still around in Montreal. Yeah. That's fantastic. I'm curious about how working with a choreographer, a well-established choreographer like that, affects your choreographic process when you switch roles.
It's a good question. And actually that was something that I had a lot of anxiety about, was maybe it's different with other choreographers, but all I know is that work. Like I literally spent pretty much my entire career doing Edward Locke's work for the most part. I did some ballet, some classical ballet, and then I moved right into dancing for Edward Locke. And then when I kind of left La 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 Human Steps, I ended up dancing more Edward Locke work with Louise Le Cavalier. We revisited his older works together. So yeah, as a choreographer, or to step into the role of choreographer, I had a lot of anxiety about just sort of rehashing this very specific aesthetic and style that I'd come to know throughout my career. But what could I say? He's a brilliant choreographer, and I felt a real personal connection to that type of movement, which for the most part isn't really open for improvisation. It's very calculated and full, a lot of movements, a lot of steps, a lot of busyness, and very fast. So what I tried to explore choreographically was the opposite. So I got into Qigong movement, which is very slow, very fluid, kind of healing energy movement, which is to me pretty much the exact opposite of that Edward Lockean kind of style. And that was a way for me to just sort of break the mold, I guess, or break the, any kind of influence that would have had on me. To answer your question really briefly, because I tend to ramble on, the influence that working with Edward Locke would have is risks to be pretty severe, because because it's very very stylized, and so yeah, I had to really try to change channels in my mind and try to work from another perspective.
And then when it gets to the nitty gritty, technically how you go through a creative process and working with another dancer, working with Allison, did you take a different approach to how to explain your movement to another interprète or another dancer, based on what you've learned from working with Louise, working with Edward, and being a dancer yourself in somebody else's work?
Yeah, I think especially all I've got now is this piece that we worked on here, and this piece I just sort of explained. It came from a very personal story. Like I wanted to tell a story. So I also didn't want to make it too obvious, but it's pretty obvious, the story, I think. And so to explain that, I sat down with Allison and I just said, look, this is basically the story. And she got it right away. And I sat down with Ahmed and I said, this is the story. This is how I want to tell the story. And he got it right away. So it was very easy. It was actually a lot easier. And as far as movements, I would say that, no, I don't think the way I approached working with them was similar at all to the way I worked with Edward Locke. Someone as established and as respected as Edward Locke, there's not much dialogue. I'd say it's very much it comes from above and everyone obeys. You know what I mean? Maybe I'd just say that I liked working with Louise a lot with this, like, everybody's on the same level kind of thing. As much as Louise is kind of dance royalty in a lot of respects, she's got 2 feet on the ground. She's very rooted. She's very salt of the earth type of person, and makes you aware that we're equals and that kind of thing. And I think that's really important when you're working on artistic stuff, is to try to let go of ego, or let go of this kind of role of power struggles, things like that. So yeah, I don't really want to get into the psychology of like what it was like to work with Edward Locke, but I will say this: the way that there were 2 ways that I felt really influenced. One was that there's a lot of movements that obviously are in my body that I find express what I'd like to say choreographically. So I felt influenced by the work that I did with Louise and Edward. But in the rehearsals we had very little talking. Like it was more just moving, exploring, videoing that, looking at it, saying, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Let's take that."
It sounds like 2 very successful collaborations in the works right here. I'm wondering if there's already plans for a next step or a next choreographic project on the horizon for you.
Yeah, I took a break from dancing and took a break from being involved in dance, and now I really appreciate having that back in my life. So as far as choreographing stuff, I've got there's a couple dance gigs that are on the horizon, but with choreography I'd like to work on some dance film stuff with especially my musical collaborator. We've talked about a couple ideas, film ideas, that we'd like to do here in Ottawa. So
excellent. Yes, Ottawa. So what brings you to the Dark Horse Dance Projects in the first place, seeing as I think you're the first guest we've had that isn't necessarily a graduate from the Ottawa School of Dance?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. You guys are all from the same school pretty much. How did this come about? Maybe 2 years ago at the it was at the National Arts Center. We were watching a Frederick Gavel piece, and I met Jocelyn. And Jocelyn and I met backstage during the Canada Dance Festival 2015, and she mentioned that she was doing a small emerging choreographer festival and asked me if I'd like to contribute something to it. And I wasn't sure that I did, because I was just sort of getting my feet here in Ottawa, and wasn't sure I wanted to take on the stress of everything that's involved with creating a dance piece. And so I didn't, but I went and saw it, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really successful festival, and I knew I wanted to be part of it the next year. And so we talked, and that's how that happened. I think she asked me if I would contribute my bio to the application for funding for the festival, and I said, by all means, I would like to be part of that. And so then when it came to fruition, she said, okay, now do a piece. So that's how that worked. But I'm really grateful for that. I think it's no secret that it's a very small community in Ottawa, and so there's you know, I guess I wasn't expecting it to be as fun and as thriving as it is. You know, like to meet a group of people that are young, that are actually putting on shows and making it happen, is refreshing, and it's exciting.
Awesome. What a great note to say goodbye on. Keir Knight, the choreographer of one of the works in the Dark Horse Dance Project, has just joined me, and thank you so much for doing so.
Oh, thank you.
And for the next set of artists that I'm going to be speaking with, we're going to have a familiar voice on the air. It's Marie-France Jacques, who we've had on a couple of times. For what reasons, can you remind me?
It was a solo that I presented for Vue sur la Relève. Et le nom c'était Aspire. So it was like 2 or 3 years ago, I think.
Wonderful. But that hasn't been the last time we saw each other, which is great.
Yeah.
And also Julie Timchuk, who is joining us as well. You two have created a collaboration, a piece together. And you both currently reside in Montreal and are right now in Ottawa to present this work. And we're going to do a little franglais again for this interview. So this is actually a piece that the first iteration of it was presented at, so you think that was Dance in April of this year. However, it's so different than it was in April. I had the chance to see a run this time round, and it's completely transformed. The whole mood, the whole texture of the work has changed. Can you consider it the same work?
Je pense que même le nom a changé. C'est comme... De l'idée de base, on parlait plus de l'image de la rockstar, puis du fame, puis tout le glamour qui va avec ça. Puis on mettait ça beaucoup en opposition avec le fait d'être comme quelconque, puis d'être juste un dans une masse, puis de pas vraiment avoir d'identité. C'est un peu comme la glorification de l'identité, l'image de la rockstar versus comme tout l'aspect plus comme... humain, ver de terre, parce qu'on utilise l'image du ver de terre versus l'humain. Puis ça, de ce qu'on a gardé de ça, c'est vraiment l'aspect de l'évolution de l'humain. Tout le fait qu'on commence ensemble, on a une bâche, c'est dur à expliquer en mots, mais oui, c'est ça, c'est un peu l'évolution de la conscience humaine. On commence ensemble, puis là, on évolue chacun dans notre direction. Finalement, on ne devient jamais des rockstars. Cette partie a complètement été effacée, mais c'est ça qui nous a amené l'idée de base d'évolution. Puis...
Mais il y a aussi, à l'école, on avait fait une pièce qui s'appelait « Le rock n'est pas mort ». Alors, je pense qu'on est parti de cette envie de poursuivre la collaboration. Fait qu'on est parti d'une pièce qu'on connaissait. Puis finalement, comme... on était interpellés par comme un autre sujet juste par l'écoute du podcast finalement. Fait que je pense qu'on s'est laissé beaucoup plus s'inspirer par le podcast. Puis...
Ouais. Dans le fond, c'est un podcast qui parle de l'évolution de la conscience humaine. Donc, c'est de là qu'on est parti comme... Mais le podcast, c'est même plus dans la pièce finale en plus. Donc, c'est vraiment des seeds that we just followed and then it brought this. And, you know, it's only 10 minutes, so we kind of kept the essence of it. So the rest just disappeared. But for us, it's still there somewhere. But like for the audience, I think it's hard to see.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely one of the most notable differences is there's an episode of, is it Radio Lab that plays at the beginning of the original piece and gives out, it plays for a while. You get a lot of information from this podcast about your themes, and now it's distorted and covered, and you don't get any information from the audio. I mean, literal language information. You get information in another sense, but so. Is there something about how concretizing your idea let you let go of the language, or was it, did it become no longer about that? What was it that let you drop the words?
Yeah, it's funny because it's still about that, but we thought that if we really wanted it to be a meditative and super like immersive, so we're like, if we put the podcast with the words and like scientific information is going to bring people back in their mind and dans l'espèce de conscience intelligence. Donc on voulait pas ramener on voulait que ça reste super sensoriel. Fait que là on s'est dit puis on a parlé avec le musicien puis il est comme moi aussi j'aimerais ça que ce soit plus vraiment en background, comme juste des glitches de ça. Puis ce qui est drôle, c'est qu'on a un teaser, un petit film de 2 minutes. Puis le podcast, il est au complet dans le teaser. Fait que, tu sais, il y a un lien, mais c'est très... le lien est resté mince, là.
Puis je pense qu'on a utilisé aussi beaucoup le podcast comme pour nous donner comme de la matière, comme un peu notre discours interne ou comme nos étapes d'évolution. Fait que ça a plus nourri un peu toute la dramaturgie de la pièce. Puis on voulait pas nécessairement qu'il soit entièrement présent parce que là, ça l'amenait trop le spectateur à comprendre, intellectualiser. Fait qu'on voulait aller dans l'esthétique, comme Marie-France l'a dit, juste l'être de la chose.
And there is a great exploration of the two of you creating one creature, and this kind of the comfort in moving together. Is this something that just kind of bleeds naturally out of studying at the same place, studying at l'École de danse contemporaine de Montréal together, or where does that interest come from?
I think it's when, like, we have a tarp, which is pretty obvious on stage, and I think, like, Julie brought the tarp one day, the tarp idea, and we're like, yeah, maybe we could be la même créature, toujours dans cette idée de pas être dans l'ego ou dans la glorification de soi. C'est comme, tu sais, si on est la même chose, puis on est vraiment une entité, un peu justement l'idée de la créature, parce que dans le podcast, il parle beaucoup de vers de terre, vers le singe, puis tout, en tout cas, des différentes créatures vivantes. Fait que je pense que c'est de là qu'est venue l'idée de... Puis aussi, ça nous fait une genre de carapace, puis comme on en sort, espèce de laisser la carapace derrière, puis après, on devient plus des individus qui prennent des directions différentes. Mais sinon, je pense que c'est vraiment partie de quelque chose de bestial, un peu, là, de créatures, puis de...
To disassemble all your limbs and put them back together in
Yeah.
one.
Oui, il y avait cette idée d'être la même chose, puis à travers l'évolution de la pièce, comme on retrouvait notre identité, puis comme chacune sa propre évolution. Fait, je pense qu'on voulait mettre ça en lumière, comme une chose, puis il y a comme un élément qui fait en sorte qu'il y a une rupture, mais on peut pas nécessairement la voir, mais c'est juste intérieur, puis on retrouve notre propre personnalité ou singularité.
By the way, you're both rock stars. Definitely saw that. And to the practicality of this thing, what brings you to the Dark Horse Dance Project? What's the connection to Ottawa, and what does it mean to present work here in this context?
Ben, c'est sûr que Marie-France est venue étudier 1 an à The School of Dance, mais je pense que c'était le fait qu'on connaît Marie-Pierre, puis j'ai vu passer l'application, puis il y a eu une envie d'aller présenter ailleurs, une envie de découvrir une autre communauté en danse, puis on est venu faire une mini-résidence ici. J'étais super impressionnée qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui se passent, puis des choses que je connaissais pas. C'était plus de découvrir, puis c'est intéressant d'avoir une autre perspective, puis d'aller à l'école de School of Dance, voir les locaux, ça l'ouvre comme je sais pas, ça l'ouvre. Il y a une ouverture, en fait.
Ouais, puis aussi toute la... Tu sais, de pas être chez nous, de comme... C'est vraiment comme... On dit on est on tour, même si c'est juste un 2-hour drive, mais juste d'être comme vraiment ensemble, là, tu sais, un peu immergé dans le travail, au lieu de rentrer chez nous, dans nos trucs, tu sais. Quand on est venu en résidence aussi ici, là, mais je pense que tout le monde qui est déjà allé en résidence à l'extérieur pendant une période, ou même faire des shows, tu peux vraiment être comme dans la pièce, puis, tu sais, vivre seul au lieu d'aller travailler le matin. Oui, tu sais, quoi. Fait que, ouais, puis c'est ça aussi, découvrir le milieu ici, puis rencontrer les danseurs d'ici.
Puis aussi de voir comment on s'exprime. C'est différent de rencontrer d'autres artistes, puis de se présenter. Ça l'informe beaucoup sur qui on est ou où on est rendu dans notre cheminement. Juste... Puis on a senti beaucoup d'ouverture ici. Quand on est venu en résidence, il y avait beaucoup de curiosité. On est qui? Alors, ça nous amenait à nous identifier différemment qu'à Montréal, que peut-être que les gens ont l'impression de nous connaître, mais en fait, ils ne nous connaissent pas vraiment. Il y a beaucoup de danseurs. Fait on voit beaucoup de visages, mais personne prend vraiment le temps de venir nous voir, comme sur quoi vous travaillez, OK, vous faites ça. Fait ici, on a senti une place à l'ouverture, puis les gens étaient curieux de savoir qui on était.
Rock stars once again. Any last words about Dark Horse or about the work?
Course. Mais moi, je trouve que c'est vraiment un projet, là. Je trouve ça vraiment exceptionnel de faire venir autant des danseurs d'ici, mais je pense qu'il y a des gens genre des États-Unis, 2 groupes de Montréal, puis on va voir nos collègues de Montréal avec qui on danse dans d'autres projets, d'être dans un autre contexte, même de voir qu'est-ce qu'ils font ici. En tout cas, c'est le fun de... C'est vraiment un beau projet, je trouve, que les filles ont monté, puis c'est beaucoup de travail, là, mais ça amène... je pense que c'est une communauté qui avait besoin de ça aussi. Il y a déjà hâte qui font leurs choses, d'avoir ça pour la relève, puis les gens qui sortent de l'école, puis je pense que c'est vraiment... ça va inciter les gens qui sortent de l'école à créer, puis à avoir leur propre signature artistique. Fait que non, c'est un beau projet... Ouais.
Merci beaucoup. I've been speaking with Julie Timchuk and Marie-France Jacques from Montreal. Merci. Next up, I'll be speaking with another solo artist who's choreographed a work on herself. I'm going to be speaking with Kay Kenny, who is another graduate from the School of Dance here in Ottawa, but is currently based in Kingston.
Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you for expanding the geography of this episode even further. This is great. So let's talk about not only what brought you to Ottawa for the showcase, but what brought you to the School of Dance for training in the first place.
I grew up studying ballet, and I was a complete bunhead for most of my adolescent years. And around the time I was auditioning for dance schools, I broke my knee. So I had to take a year off, which gave me some more time to kind of suss out all the schools in the area. I knew I wanted to leave Kingston, that's for sure. There's not a lot of dance that happens there, unfortunately. And I found the School of Dance. I auditioned, and there was a few other schools in Toronto I auditioned for as well, but I don't know, I had a connection with Ottawa, so I came here and I studied at the School of Dance. I started in 2009.
And have you maintained the relationship with the city since going away, or is Dark Horse really a grand return?
Actually, I dance for Ottawa Dance Directive, where we're dancing right now. So Yvonne Coots is the artistic director, and I've been dancing for them since 2013, so almost right out of school. And I'm back here on contracts for decent chunks of the year all the time. So I was here April, May, June, and now I'm back end of July.
All right. So are you doing any dancing in Kingston?
I'm doing more choreography. So I'm trying to get the dance buzz happening there. I actually just directed and choreographed my first full-length work ever. And it was hosted in Kingston, which was pretty cool because it's a one-of-a-kind thing for the area, as well as a first-time thing for myself. So it was good to expose the city to that. And we sold out, and the dancers were great, even though some of them hadn't trained professionally before. And it went really well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very exciting. All right. So was that was a piece that you were not in then?
No, I was just heading that. I was a choreographer, and it was about 75 minutes. And actually, the music that I'm using in this solo is kind of a revamped version of something I used in that piece.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Now, you've chosen to do a solo on yourself for this project.
Yes.
What made this piece, this comedic, dark, theatrical dance work, the appropriate one for the presentation?
I'm still trying to figure that out right now. I haven't created a solo since I was in school, and I think it's one of the hardest ways to create is being by yourself in the studio. Lots of just like being in my head and thinking. But my grandmother, I got her this book for Christmas 2 Christmases ago, and on her 80th birthday, she decided that she was going to write the first 80 days of her life on the 80 pages in the notebook. So I've been studying this, and that's what this piece is based off of. So it's kind of acting through my grandmother's eyes a little bit, and all the stories I've heard in her journal that she gave me.
Let's talk about how you would describe the work. I know I've thrown a couple words at it, but how do you see the work?
Reflective, a little bit trying to take a peek into the future. I'm really interested in the idea of aging. It terrifies me and excites me, and all of these things that come with it. So I wanted to explore that a little bit. And yeah, it's definitely heavy. Like, we're aging every day. Like, no day is going to be the same. And I wanted to explore that and see how I could turn it into a work, pulled through what my grandmother kind of brought to the table without knowing it in this journal.
And there are a lot of different elements involved in the presentation. Like as I mentioned, there's theatrics to it. You use props. You use your voice.
Yes.
Where did these elements come from? Is it something you decide that you are going to utilize from the top, or is it something that comes through when you start exploring your grandmother's history?
I knew I wanted to be speaking for sure. The props came in later on. And this book is filled with so many different things that I really had a hard time narrowing down what the concept would be and the idea, because, and what I wanted to say out loud as well as in movement, and try and contrast that both so that they match up.
I kind of have the same question about the comedy of the work. Mm-hmm. And is that something that you kind of stumbled upon and realized was humorous and pushed, or is it something that you were aiming for?
I think I more or less stumbled upon it. I tend to do things that are pretty sad. So I wanted to make sure I started, at least tried to start a little bit on a peppier note. And the music is really heavy, so I wanted to build a contrast with the text. So that's kind of how I played around with that.
And how has your experience been thus far? I know you haven't opened the show yet, but how has it been to be a part of the Dark Horse Dance lineup?
It's been great. I love Jocelyn and Mary Pierre. They've set something really special up. And unfortunately, I was teaching in Toronto last year, so I didn't get to see the show. But I've heard all the amazing buzz about it, and I'm so pumped to be involved. And I was just talking to someone, and they were asking me who I had coming, and I said a lot of my friends are in the show, which is pretty cool. So that in itself is just neat, seeing all of these people from so many years of being here in Ottawa come back for this specific thing. So it's pretty nice.
Yes, we've been hearing this refrain of the reunion aspect of this showcase, which is great. Great. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Kay Kenny, who is presenting a solo work as part of the Dark Horse Dance Project.
Yes. It's called 62680. That's the title of the piece.
Great. Next up, we have another duo of ladies who are coming all the way from Montreal to present work as part of Dark Horse here in Ottawa. Both of these artists have been on Dirty Feet in the past, so we're going to start there as an introduction. So there is a collaboration, but there is one choreographer in this duo who is Elise Bergeron, and I want to say hello and welcome back to Dirty Feet. And can you remind our listeners when we would have heard from you in the past on the show?
On Dirty Feet, I think it was for Zonoma. I was performing with Atypique Le Collectif for it was calling Squat 4200 at this time, but now this part of piece, it's called Tram.
So keeping it active, doing more work. You're showing this short piece as part of the Dark Horse Project, and I would like to know what it is that brings you to Ottawa to present this work. What is your connection to the city?
En fait, j'ai vu passer l'appel de projet, puis Je connais un peu la communauté d'Ottawa parce que j'ai déjà fait une session en fait à School of Dance, puis j'avais trouvé la communauté de la danse vraiment solidaire ensemble. Puis je trouve qu'ils ont une force de continuer à essayer de faire des projets puis à essayer de faire vivre la danse à Ottawa, qui je pense qui était toujours un peu précaire. Puis je trouvais ça beau d'avoir cette opportunité-là, en fait, de venir peut-être donner un peu de mousse à la danse contemporaine d'Ottawa, puis de pouvoir participer, de revenir un peu dans cet univers-là. Puis comme je connaissais bien Marie-Pierre Gilbert, qu'on avait travaillé ensemble et tout, ça a été comme un peu une porte d'entrée pour me dire « OK, let's go, je le fais, je dépose pour le projet ».
Perfect. And at this point, I'd also like to introduce your dancer, who's Rosie Quentin, who in the past has been the roommate of a past co-host of Dirty Feet, JD Papillon, just to really bring the family in close. And Rosie, you've also been on the show before for a couple different projects. Do you want to remind us what those were? En fait, j'étais de passage à Dirty Feet pour danse buissonnière. Je sais plus exactement c'est quelle année, par contre, je suis un peu confuse. Mais c'était pour la pièce Rond-Point que j'avais co-créée et co-interprétée avec Frédéric Wiper. Puis voilà, on avait discuté de ça. Puis je pense que j'avais collaboré aussi avec Elise sur Squat 4200. Mais je me souviens plus si j'étais présente à l'émission, mais j'ai travaillé sur la pièce avec toi, en tout cas.
In any case, we're here now.
Oui, c'est ça. Voilà le lien.
Is this your first time performing in Ottawa?
Oui.
Excellent.
Oui.
And I've had the opportunity to see a run of the work, which is it has a very clear proposition visually with your costumes and your set and your sound and your hair. And I want to know what the seed of the project was and how that grew and where the mise en scène came from and whether it was the movement first or this proposition.
Non, oui. En fait, tout ça vient d'une idée stupide de base. En fait, parce que je portais un veston de cuir qui, à chaque fois qu'il y avait... qui était vraiment bruyant, puis à chaque fois qu'il y avait des silences, on entendait juste tout le temps mon manteau de cuir. Puis je me suis dit, ça serait super d'écrire une partition dansée pour le cuir. Puis c'est de là vraiment que la graine de cette idée-là de Blau est née. Puis on a eu l'opportunité de participer au séminaire de création avec l'Université de Montréal et coordonné avec Sarah Bild et Anna Sokolovic, où ça nous permettait de collaborer avec des compositeurs de musique à l'Université de Montréal. Puis là, je me suis dit, je vais juste comme essayer, participer à ce projet-là, puis tester cette idée-là qui trame dans ma tête depuis vraiment longtemps. Puis de là, de fil en aiguille, on a comme vraiment créé un univers à travers ça, vraiment en collaboration avec Joshua Bucci, puis Olivier Marin qui est l'altiste aussi qui accompagne le son de la cuirette. À la base, je voulais vraiment juste travailler avec le son de cuirette. Je voulais travailler avec un textile, puis on est revenu à l'idée du cuir, à l'idée de la cuirette. Puis on a ajouté aussi une autre partie qui est un peu plus métallique par rapport à l'aluminium. De fil en aiguille, on a mis des couches, on a mis d'autres couches, puis là, j'avais des idées de gros masques comme qui montent vraiment en haut, puis on est revenu à une idée plus simple où les cheveux couvrent le visage, parce que j'aime quand même bien l'idée de cacher l'identité. Tout ça a mené vers quelque chose d'un peu plus métaphorique, ou avec la gestuelle, ou qui... J'avais une obsession avec la spirale. Puis je suis née avec la spirale, puis j'ai commencé à travailler avec la spirale. Puis à force de travailler avec la spirale, il y a quelque chose de bien spirituel qui vient avec ça. Puis une espèce de connexion pour moi qui se crée entre tout cet univers immense et la petitesse d'un ADN sur Terre. Donc, tout ça pour dire que... Tout ça est lié, tout Blau, chaque élément de Blau est lié par rapport à la spirale, par rapport au son, par rapport à l'énergie, par rapport à la musique.
And voice as well. There's this very powerful and very grounding element that's in the work, and also eerie work. Yeah, what do you have to say about that element? Where did that impose itself into the project and say, I want to be heard?
I don't know where it's come from. I just don't really know because j'étais dans une résidence de création toute seule avec cette idée-là de Blau, après avoir travaillé déjà avec Rosie, où on avait présenté un solo. On savait qu'on voulait aller dans un duo, puis je voulais comme prendre un temps pour juste retrouver c'est quoi la gestuelle, puis aller creuser un peu plus loin par moi-même. Puis je me suis retrouvée en studio toute seule à Val-David, aux Lézards locaux. Puis j'étais toute seule en studio, puis j'avais envie de travailler avec la méditation beaucoup. J'étais dans un trip où j'écoutais des sons de planètes de 30 minutes, là, un son de Saturne. Puis je me suis mis dans des états de méditation où je me lançais dans des improvisations, puis à un certain point, la voix est arrivée par le mouvement, en fait, beaucoup par le mouvement, par l'oscillation, par le balancé qui est venu beaucoup. Puis ce balancé-là a amené une respiration dans le diaphragme qui a amené finalement la voix. Puis il y a quelque chose de... Je sais pas. Il y a quelque chose que j'ai vraiment aimé parce que ça fait pas partie du tout de mon travail à la base. Comme ça m'a confrontée, il y a quelque chose qui est sorti de loin de mon instinct, puis j'avais envie de l'exploiter davantage. Puis avec Rosie, on a fait en sorte que ça puisse mener vers quelque chose que je comprends pas encore.
All right. Now I want to hear from Rosie being taken on this journey. It's also a very intimate piece between the two of you. You were in close proximity, and there's a lot of really literal translation of movement. Like you're very uniform in your vocabulary. Your movement vocabulary is very similar and exact. And so what is it like to be in this process, Rosie, and to kind of take all this information on and how much did you feed into that? How much did you accept? What was the collaboration like?
En fait, la collaboration avec Élise, elle commence à dater. Là, ça fait déjà je pense à ça tantôt, près de 10 ans là, qu'on contribue au projet de l'une et l'autre de différentes manières. Oui, ça fait longtemps. Là, 8 ans, en fait, 8 ans, précisément. Puis, Élise, sa démarche, c'est une démarche qui s'est construite vraiment petit à petit, mais il y a vraiment des points qui reviennent d'un projet à l'autre. Puis finalement, il y a beaucoup de similitudes d'un projet à l'autre, mais c'est abordé juste avec de plus en plus de clarté, de cohérence, d'éloquence, à mon avis, de l'intérieur. Puis, assurément qu'avec le temps, c'est des projets qui se construisent l'un à la suite de l'autre, l'un en réponse à l'autre. Donc, après peut-être 8 ans de collaboration on and off, on finit par se saisir dans une finesse assez naturelle, je pense. Puis on a des corps qui peuvent aborder le mouvement on n'est pas à 1000 lieues l'une de l'autre là, dans notre approche du mouvement, dans notre approche dans notre vision de ce que c'est le corps, le mouvement, la respiration, la connexion l'une à l'autre, la connexion à l'espace. Fait que je dirais que tout ça, même si ça nécessite une intimité vraiment profonde, puis quand même une assez grande prise de risque dans le dévoilement, mettons, ben ça s'est fait assez fluidement puis assez naturellement. Je pense que Ellie, c'est comme elle expliquait. Elle partait en studio, elle recherchait, elle creusait, elle revenait avec moi, elle me partageait. On voyait ensemble qu'est-ce que ça donnait. Beaucoup de conversations sur qu'est-ce qui en ressort, comment on le vit. Puis après, ça, des ajustements. Puis beaucoup de travail de comment on part de OK, je reçois beaucoup de choses en même temps, puis on précise, mais dans une grande liberté en même temps, tu sais, d'intégrité, là, je pense. Fait que ça a été ma vision du projet de l'intérieur dans le processus. Ça s'est fait un peu de cette manière-là.
For my last question, and feel free to add any last words that you'd like to contribute to the interview, but I would like to know how your experience has been with Dark Horse dance projects thus far.
Ben, c'est vraiment super. C'est vraiment super. Dark Horse, il offre vraiment une plateforme vraiment bien organisée. Comme ils sont super structurés, ils sont vraiment accueillants. Comme juste notre tech time, là, ça a super bien été, même si avec le peu de temps qu'on avait. Puis, ouais, c'est comme une petite famille aussi, là. C'est ça qui est beau. On se sent vraiment inclus dans cette aventure-là.
Je pense que c'est important de souligner l'importance de ces plateformes-là. Un processus, je trouve, a besoin d'être... Ben, pas tous les processus, mais souvent, on fait tellement de constats plus clairs, plus nets sur ce qu'on est en train de faire en le présentant, en le partageant. Puis ça enrichit vraiment le processus de pouvoir créer par étapes, tu sais, par étape de travail. Puis là, Dark Horse, ça nous permet, c'est vraiment un bon prétexte, si je peux me permettre, entre guillemets, pour faire avancer le projet, puis lui, prendre le risque d'assumer certaines choses, de les tester vraiment, puis de faire comme, OK, on essaie de cette façon-là, puis c'est une étape, puis après ça prendra la direction que ça prendra, mais c'est super, puis je pense que pour Blau, ça a été... c'est précieux de passer par ça.
En fait, ça pousse, ça nous permet de pousser les limites puis de les tester. Comme si on n'avait pas eu cette opportunité-là à Dark Horse, je pense pas qu'on aurait essayé de transformer la proposition qui était à la base un solo en duo, puis ça l'amène totalement à autre chose. Après, ça s'appelait Blau 2. Mais peut-être pas, là. Mais dans le sens où ça nous permet d'explorer puis de tester puis de comprendre mieux ce qu'on est en train de créer.
Thank you very much. I've been speaking to Elise Bergeron and Rosie Contant, who are presenting a duet as part of the Dark Horse Dance Projects. Thank you. Next up, I'm going to be speaking with Mary Catherine Jack, who is a choreographer presenting a work in collaboration with a musician for this presentation. And I would love for you to start by introducing your collaborator, because she's not here with us right now, but she's a big part of what you do.
That's right. So her name is Megan Jerome, and she's a singer-songwriter from Ottawa.
And I guess it's not fair to say she's not with us right now. She's playing the piano in the background. We're in between shows right now, so we're going to keep it quick. So let's talk about this style that you guys do together. I heard briefly that you were explaining how you approach her with your propositions for these pieces that you've put together, and now you've done 5 short works together, right?
That's right. Yep. So I guess I would call them vignettes or vignette-style performances, in that it's short, and there's quite a bit of an element of like a dramatic element to it, a musical element, and then the dance element. And each little vignette is a little story, not like a chapter in a book, but maybe if you had, I sort of jokingly call us dance band. If you had an album, it would be like a dance song on the album. And our process is I usually think of an idea and what song would match that idea, and then I just sort of let it marinate for a while. And as it evolves, eventually I'll send the song to Megan, and then we'll have a meeting, and I'll say, what do you think about this? And then just sort of go through, do like a walkthrough of what I see happening. And she says, yep, let's try it. And it's a pretty simple recipe, but it works because we collaborate well together. We're a good match.
Wonderful. And uniquely, you're actually presenting in both lineups for the Dark Horse Dance Project. So you've got 2 different propositions or vignettes. And from what I've seen there's humor in these 2. Is there humor in all of them? And is that an element that's important to these things?
I guess, yes, we both have, I wouldn't say it's, it's important in that it's great that people find it funny, and laughter is important, but it's not necessarily I don't try to be funny. It's not my intention to make a comic sketch. But I think just based on our personalities and what our sensibilities about things, our sensitivities towards things, we just end up having a good time, and therefore it ends up being funny.
Yeah, and that's it. Once you're having a good time, we're definitely having a good time as the audience. Okay, I want to talk about your connection to the showcase. So you did study at the School of Dance here in Ottawa. And I also learned, this is an interesting point for our Montreal listeners, that you did briefly study at Concordia. And in fact, we're in the same class as Dana Michelle. So that's pretty cool. But can you tell us a bit about how you've studied and where you studied and what your career has looked like?
Okay. I sort of came to dance later in life. I didn't grow up dancing, well, in my bedroom and in my kitchen and in my backyard. But my background is actually visual art. I went to the University of Waterloo and studied visual art and became very interested in installations, like sculpture, installation work, performance, a little bit into the performance art, and found dance when I was studying there, and graduated from the visual arts program with an option in performing arts, and worked for a while, and then decided that I just had to follow this dance pathway. And so I went to Mom, Dad, I'm going to be a dancer. And they were just like, oh my God. So I went to Concordia, did a semester there, and then found my way here. And I've done a lot of independent solo work. I've been very fortunate to perform with Opera Lyra when they had a company here in Ottawa. And I've been extremely fortunate to work with some local choreographers, Caroline Barrière and Kathy Kyle Fenton recently performed at the Fringe Festival. So being involved in this project, the Dark Horse, is really exciting because I love the collaborative element of it. And the fact that it's a way for the dance community to connect, because when you're an independent artist, you're independent. You don't always have that connection with your peers necessarily. So it's just nice for everybody to be in the same room with the same goal, with the same intention. And it's amazing that Mary-Pierre and Jocelyn have really fostered that and facilitated that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Any last words?
See you next year.
Yeah, this is already year 2 for you for Dark Horse, so more in the future?
Absolutely, and if not as a performer, in some other sort of supportive role, for sure.
Great. Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Mary Catherine Jacques, who is one of the choreographers for the evening. Thank you. That concludes this episode of Dirty Feet. I'm Allison Burns. Thank you very much to the Dark Horse Dance Projects team for giving me full access to cover the project this year. And also thank you to Paula Follow and the No More Radio Network for support.